Morning, Raptor Freak Alexiot's here on a Tuesday morning after a game last night in Chicago where the Raptors lost to the Chicago Bulls. Yeah, we saw our old friend DeMar DeRozan last night, and once again, he's a master of the NBA. He's an efficient, badass offensive machine, and he did really good last night. Like, honestly, his efficiency was badass. Honestly, I had to admire it during the game, the way he was getting to his shot and making it. Even a couple times he had guys in his face. He still made it 11 of 14 from the field for DeMar for 26 points, plus 13, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, and 3 blocks for DeMar last night, which is crazy. I just got to be in awe of him, honestly. On that greatest Raptors of all time list, Kyle Lowry's number one, but to me, DeMar DeRozan is number two. So in a way, I still root for him in some ways. It kind of helps the sting of not winning an important game. This is really important because we could have gotten a lot of traction out of the play-in last night because Cleveland lost to LeBron and the Lakers last night also, and that helped us with trying to get to the Cleveland Cavs if we'd won, but we did not win last night, unfortunately. And there were a couple of things that were stacked against the Raptors last night. Matt Devlin was talking about it during the game in the second half last night about how unfortunate it was that the facility in Philadelphia decided to have their hockey game, their Philadelphia Flyers hockey game Sunday at 2 p.m. start on a Sunday afternoon instead of noon start. And that it pushed our game back on Sunday night to 8:30, which was much later than it should have been. It should have started around 7:30. If they just started that fucking hockey game on Sunday morning at noon instead of 2 o'clock in the Wells Fargo building. I think that's what they're calling it now. Whatever robber bank that's paid the money to be in charge of Philadelphia's building. That really set us up for failure the next night, honestly, in some ways, because the turnaround between that game and flying from Philadelphia to Chicago, having a time change, all kinds of different stuff involved, and being on the tail end of like really a 9-game road trip. The fatigue had just accumulated, and that was that. There wasn't a whole lot we could do. We hit a wall. We literally hit a wall with our energy in the third quarter last night, and we couldn't score. It was like at the 8-minute mark, we had a basket, and then boom, for like 5 or 6 minutes, we did not score any points in the field. We were getting a couple of free throws here and there until Armani Brooks hit that three and snapped us out of it for a real quick second. But we had real trouble scoring. This is a weird thing about the Chicago team. They're like kind of pretenders, but they're kind of not. It's like whether they decide to play defense or not is whether they're good. Because half the game last night, they didn't play much defense. They were very easy to pick apart in different ways. But then half the time, it seemed like they were unstoppable on defense, where we could not absolutely score on them. It's very weird. Very, very weird, because it seems like we should be able to pick them apart with mismatches in different places, and we were just not able to do that. And maybe a testament to the coaching of Billy Donovan, shoring up his team and just getting them in the right way, playing them the right way for the situation against the aggressive, energetic, offensive rebounding Raptors, because they did a really good job. In a lot of ways, they did a much better job than Philadelphia in some very important particular things that helped them win last night. Good morning, Sue. Tough loss. The boys looked exhausted in the second half. The Bulls had their way with us in the third quarter. It was just too much for our guys. The tale of two halves. Yes, a lot of people are annoyed with Nick Nurse because they feel like maybe he should have been bringing in bench guys earlier in the game last night. Maybe they could have been a pep earlier in the game than bringing him right in at the end of garbage. Because Yuta got out there and he was like a horse unleashed, just running all over the place, being a crazy ball of energy. That may have been a good time to do it, Nick, is when your guys are completely flat and look like that. Maybe you bring in some of these guys you have not put on the court very often and just let them ride. You're going to probably lose anyway. So why not put in Svi and Yuta and Delano at the end of the game and see if their energy and their enthusiasm to try and get something going for their game to get more minutes can help us. in that moment, because that really could have helped us if they got out there maybe a little bit earlier. They have stuff to play for. Instead, we got like guys that were really looking exhausted. Like seriously, I couldn't believe how tired the Raptors looked in the third quarter. And it was stupid stuff like really bad making shots. Like they didn't make shots that they were open that normally they would have made. That's a telltale sign right there. And then the other one was the turnovers. We had way too many turnovers last night. That's not characteristic of the Toronto Raptors team. We take care of the ball. We do not turn the ball over. And we had some really piss poor turnovers in the second half last night. I'm looking specifically at Thaddeus Young for a couple series down the court. He was just awful. He lost the ball every which way 2 times down the court. And then Scottie threw the ball into the crowd at one point in that whole series. Those 3 turnovers in a row right there killed us, along with the really bad shooting in that stretch. So it's like the bad shooting with the turnovers right there. It was really, really hard to stay with them. And that's when they separated from us and they got a double-digit lead. And then now at that point, we're tired and now we have to overcome a lead to win the game. Yeah, it's not happening. So it's just unfortunate. Maybe Nick should have put in those younger guys that have not played much off the bench at the beginning of the fourth and try to spark something then. Because our core guys that you've been riding most of the time on this road trip and this time, they just didn't have it anymore, Nick. And maybe it was time to bring in that stick of dynamite, Yuta Watanabe, and put in Ukrainian Svi Mihalik and let him go out there with a passion for the game and try and get his game right with some shots. It couldn't have hurt. It couldn't have hurt in this situation. And I didn't agree with bringing them in so late because we saw how much Armani Brooks was working out there and running around and doing stuff, which was good. We have more of those guys that were available to do that. But when we think about guys like Pascal, Scottie, Kem, and Chris Boucher and Precious, they looked gassed in the second half last night. Like absolutely couldn't do a whole lot. We could tell with Pascal, he was tired. You could really tell. Susan agrees. Should have tried to jumpstart some of the bench guys that haven't been seeing any minutes. It just seems like it would have been a smart strategy. If you have guys that look completely exhausted and tired, give them the rest and bring these guys in because they could really help us on the stretch run in different ways. And they may be important guys for us in the playoffs. Svi Mihalik could end up being like a Jim Paxson. He could end up being like a Steve Kerr at some point in a playoff game. One of these guys that just kind of sets up in the corner and hits a big 3 to help us because people are doubling down on other people. I still like to see him get reintroduced into the rotation at some point before the end of the season, Nick, if you're able to. But it doesn't look like it's in your plans. You're just going to wait for guys like OG and Gary. That was a big scratch yesterday. When I found out that he hyperextended his toe, which sounded a little weird in itself. But I guess if you think about it, there are bones in your big toe, and there's different things that can happen with maybe you hyperextend the toe, and it's probably pretty painful. Like if you can't pop it back in and get it right, it could be very painful and hard to walk on. So I totally understand why he couldn't play last night, but it was a big detriment to our defense. Like not having OG out there is one thing, but then not having Gary Trent Jr. out there also is another. And we did see that to a degree. Chicago was able to operate. Like somebody like Zach LaVine wouldn't have had such a good game last night if Gary Trent Jr. was out there last night. And they both did. All 3 of the big Bulls had good games last night. DeMar, 26 points. Zach LaVine, 26 points. And Vucevic, 19 points, 13 rebounds. All 3 of their superstars showed up and produced in a big way. And we can't have that happen. Like, it's the same thing with Philadelphia. We couldn't let Embiid and Harden do what they did, and we didn't, and that we won. And we should have done that at least to 2 out of 3 of their superstars. One of them can go off, but not all 3 of them. And LaVine, when he was open, he was precision laser sharp with his 3-point. Like it was really nice the way he was shooting. And boy, that really hurt us. The Zach LaVine 3-pointers that were wide open absolutely hurt us. Horribly hurt us. And that would have been something that maybe Gary would have been all over. Good morning, Callie. Team looked sloppy and tired. Fred was horrible. Yeah, Fred was actually better than he was against Philadelphia, which is weird. But yeah, he did miss a lot. He was 7 for 22. He only had one turnover, which is pretty good because there were a lot of turnovers last night. He did get 6 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals, 19 points, 3 3-pointers out of 12. He could have played better. He could have shot better. He didn't. What the thing that I didn't like about what Fred did last night was he disappeared. In the second half, he kind of just disappeared, and he didn't really have the excuse of being on the second night of back-to-back, obviously. So if anybody in the second half of the game last night needed to step up and really lead us and try and direct things, it was Fred VanVleet. But he disappeared. He was not a factor in the second half. He was not doing enough good things for us or helping other guys get easy shots when they were absolutely gassed. So yeah, I can agree with that. That Fred was a little bit, I wouldn't say he was horrible, but he did disappear. And that was a problem, an issue. We needed him to step up and show up because the Bulls leaders were showing up, and then our guys kind of faded late in the game. Like one of the really interesting stats was at the halftime, both teams had like 5 3-pointers for the whole game. And like we were real even stat wise at halftime, like really even. We were up by 1 point, and all the stats looked really even. But in the third quarter, it got absolutely wrecked. And if you think about it, both teams only had 5 3-pointers each at halftime. Well, in the second half, we only made one more 3-pointer. We ended up with 6 3-pointers shooting for 32 shots, 18.8% from the 3-point line last night. That's absolute garbage. Meanwhile, the other team went and shot 6 more 3-pointers in the second half for 11 of 28 shooting, 39%. That's a big difference right there. In the first half, we were keeping up with them on 3-pointers. In the second half, we didn't. We got 1 and they got 6 in the second half. And that was a big, big, big difference. Let's keep going. Let's see what y'all are saying. Sue's saying Fred must be injured. He looked like a shell of himself last night. He's still got a lingering injury, but he did look smooth at times in the first half. Like he was wheeling and dealing right away from the beginning. He hit a couple shots right away. That was really nice to see. He had that nice pass to Chris, that alley-oop that Chris caught. That was an amazing catch by Chris, by the way. And Chris had a really good first half. He was doing a little bit of everything that he normally does, whether it's getting that alley-oop. He had some shot block. He had a 3-pointer. He had these great putbacks. Chris was doing it all in the game last night in the first half. But in the second half, once again, none of those guys showed up. Like as far as Chris, Fred, or Pascal. Pascal had a really hard time operating in the second half. He had a lot of turnovers late and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's his knee still, obviously, which slows him down a little bit, but it's just really managing the pain and stuff like that. But you know what? Fred looked really disappointed. And I think that like he's going to take it to heart that he should have led better in the second half last night and stuff. His after game interview was interesting. He was a little upbeat considering that we lost, but also he's keeping it in perspective. Like seriously, this really was the last game of a really long road trip. Like they really basically been on the road for 3 weeks now, and they finished up this road trip. Now they're going to get a nice homestand, and they really need to adjust to being at home. And we really need to focus on getting wins at home because right now we're having a bad time at home right now, and this is something that we've got to remedy before the end of the season, the very, very short expiring end of the season right now. We have 11 games left. 8 of them are something like, no, we have 10 games left and 8 of them are at home. 2 of them are on the road. And these are important games. We need to win as many as we can. Obviously, we want to win at least 2 or 3 more to get above 500 for sure. And then also, you know, the whole factoring in of where Cleveland and Chicago and Brooklyn are going to be in relation to us over this last stretch of 10 games, because this is real important to see where we are in jockeying for position, and that the Bulls and the Cavs are still in danger, either one of them, of falling out and us taking their spot. But also it could maybe not be us that gets out of the play-in. I mean, it's a real long shot, but the Nets, if they really try and do something like where they're just like dominating with their last few games, they could possibly try and get out of there also, but it's not as likely. It really isn't. It really isn't as likely. Let's see. Callie saying, I agree. Nick should have tried the bench way earlier. Way earlier. Like, come on, Nick. I'm sick of this. You demand a high energy, high quality kind of defense and effort at both ends of the court because of the way you want them to offensive rebound and full press and just stay right up on people. You need to keep them fresh. And I kind of wish from the whole season you had been doing this differently in a way where you would integrate maybe just Yuta one game and he comes in and he's in the regular rotation for a game. But then maybe the next game it's Svi who gets his shot and he gets some rotation minutes. It just kind of evens things out, but it also allows these guys who don't get a lot of minutes to stay comfortable, to stay ready. Now, if they're bad and they're hurting us, you pull the plug and you put them on the bench for that game, but you at least give each one of them a shot. And I would like to see it in the second quarter. Yeah, I'd like to see him put in a special bench, end of the bench rotation spot minute for one of those guys who doesn't get to play a lot. Maybe Malachi when he comes back that'll be part of it, or Delano or whatever. Delano gets his minutes his own way, but I'm talking specifically about Yuta and Svi. Like if these guys could at least one of them get in each game, that would be probably good. Even if they get in only for like 2 to 5 minutes, just get them in and check them and see if they're helpful. Just see if they're helpful. It's not a heat check. It's a helpful check. Put them in and see they can be helpful to what's going on in the game that day. And that could really maybe help our fatigue near the end of the season. Now, we know guys are going to get rest games coming down the stretch. We know Pascal's going to be sitting out at least 1 or 2 games. We know Fred will also. So these regular guys will be getting rest games in the final stretch against teams like New York and Houston and stuff like that. So, yeah, Raymond Jacob, good morning. Good to see you, man. Always, as always. Nurse, the only one I think is a total genius and a total dummy at times, all in one package. Yes, in some ways. I mean, this is the thing. Being a coach is a thankless job. You know, in some ways, you don't get the kudos more often than not than the derision. You're definitely going to get the derision for messing up. It's such a hard job to do and be successful and get viewed as being a good coach. And, you know, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have problems and issues and stuff like that. I don't think it's totally Nick's fault last night. Yeah, sure. Maybe he does ride those guys too much, and maybe he should be more open to playing the guys like I'm saying right now. But also at the same time, he has an idea about how they should be and how they should perform. And like he said last night after the game, he's really happy with the effort that the guys put on the court. He wasn't too upset with what happened last night in some ways in his post game. It was more that he was just like, yeah, this is how it happened and stuff like that. You got to think about it this way also. Chicago had been sitting for 2 days. They've been off Saturday and Sunday, and they were fully rested, and we were not. We were absolutely not. It's almost like we were coming into this NBA game like if it was a video game. All of our players kind of had half fatigue, and the other team had a full green bar, and that you got to really factor that in. In fact, Matt Devlin talked about that late in the game about synchronizing the NBA schedule so that there's no unfair advantage because of back-to-backs and how they line up. Like maybe NBA, you make a schedule where everybody has back-to-backs at the same time so that there's none of this. But, you know, then you got to factor in travel between the back-to-back and how much that would be like more uncomfortable for somebody depending on how far the city is from somewhere. Because like they're saying last night, Chicago's back-to-back. They had the first night of a back-to-back last night. They're going to Milwaukee tonight. But their second game of the back-to-back is a bus ride down the road and very easy to get to. But, you know, that's what I'm saying. We had a late game in Philadelphia Sunday night, didn't get done, probably didn't get out of there till almost midnight. And then we had to fly overnight and then have a game at a regular time in another time zone. It just really compacted the turnaround from playing a game to getting prepared and starting another game. That was one of the quickest turnarounds the Raptors have had to do all season. And that's even with doing the trip from Phoenix to Denver on this trip recently. This is not an easy back-to-back. That was not an easy back-to-back. Both those are good Eastern Conference teams. And, you know, that the whole way it was set up because of the hockey game in Philadelphia on Sunday afternoon really screwed us for the Chicago game. And, you know, that's what it is. But we got, you know what, in some ways we should be happy because we split the 2 games of the back-to-back. We got one of them. We could have easily lost both of them and we'd be even worse off. So in some ways, we got to look at the bright side. And now we have a great opportunity on Thursday to really control our destiny. We need to really kick Cleveland's ass. And this is going to be a game here in Toronto. They beat us 3 times this year. We have not beaten Cleveland Cavaliers. We really need to beat them on this Thursday game. And we will be talking about it a lot on Thursday morning for the preview. I'll do all the research on Wednesday night, and we'll talk real deep in depth about what's going to happen with Cleveland and what this whole thing with the rookie race, everything, the play-in, everything, all the implications. But tomorrow we got Raptor Freak trivia tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern sharp. Please show up and get some points. Try and battle our champion G for the Raptors practice jersey I got here that's signed by Jerome Williams, the Junkyard Dog. It's a practice jersey. Whoever wins the trivia will get that jersey sent to them by me when we finish the season. The season will end when the championship goes out to an NBA team, and that's when we'll crown a champion of Raptor Freak trivia. So tune in tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. EST. First thing sharp, we will be playing trivia. You can come get some points. It's going to be fun. I have a good category. I was already making up the questions yesterday. It's going to be a lot of fun. So look out for that, please. Let's keep going. Sue's saying, if Fred doesn't get some rest and heal up, we're going to be in trouble for the playoffs. He worked so hard at the beginning of the season. I hope he still has something in the tank. Well, they'll manage him. We've been really kind of managing him well. This knee injury is tough because a knee injury with a small guard that's quick like that can really limit his quickness and his ability to move around. That's why when he got back after us resting him for a few games and he was going to the basket and doing nice things, it was like, oh, he looks good. Like he looks like he has healed up enough because he's moving enough to be able to get to the lane and lay in the ball and do some of that. He was still doing some of that last night. So I don't know if it's – I think that what happened with Fred last night may have been something a little bit different than his nagging injuries. You got to remember also, when Fred goes to Chicago, he has a lot of responsibilities with family and friends, and they can be a distraction. This is something that I warned Delano at the beginning of the season. You're a Toronto Raptor. You're from Toronto. You're from Rexdale. Don't let the friends and family distract you from what you need to do on the Toronto Raptors because you're in your hometown and you're going to be dealing with a lot of people from your past and people from your present that want to see you. And he had the best answer at the beginning of the season was, I cut it all off. It's all basketball people, and that's it. He's like, he's not dealing with other people from his life other than his very close family that he wants to deal with still, but everybody else, the hanger-ons, the people that are just kind of 2 spots away from him, nobody is in his bubble, his world anymore. And this is the thing. Fred, when he goes to Chicago, there may be a bit of that kind of distraction. There may be a bit of like, well, I'm around my friends. This and this is kind of a celebration. And I hate to say that would take away from his effectiveness on the court, but it could. It really honestly could, because I don't think it was necessarily totally his injury. And also, I don't know what it is. Usually he's more eye of the tiger and ready to really step up and be steady Freddie in those moments when we're having a hard time, like in the third quarter last night. But it just didn't happen. It just did not happen. And it could be that Billy Donovan was like, you guys really can't let Fred VanVleet do nothing. And they really kept on him. Because you got to remember, who was out there guarding him probably? It was Caruso. And Caruso's a plus defender, really good defender at what he does. And he could have really tied up Fred in important times last night, like he probably did at different times. When Fred wanted to do something, Caruso was there. So it's tough. It's a tough kind of like thing. It's hard to read what's going on with Fred, but I know if we know him, he knows the grind to get to the playoffs. He knows the grind of understanding his body and what's going on with it. He will be prepared by the time the playoffs come in a couple weeks from now. He will be that. If anything, this is a regular season game. Yeah, it was important. Maybe he didn't show up, and maybe it was distractions, maybe a little bit of lingering knee injury. Who knows? But I know he's looking at the mirror the next couple of days, and he's saying, man, we should have really won this game. That would have helped us so much, because it really would have, because it would have put Chicago way closer to us. Cleveland faltered last night. We would have been so close to them also. It really would have made almost all these teams even. All 3 of us would have been right pretty much even with our records. But now both of them have 3 wins over us. So they won the season series. So to get past Chicago and Cleveland, we have to get past them. Like, we can't be tied with them. We got to get past them to be able to get ahead of them. And that's the only way we can do it to get out of the play-in. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but anything's possible. This Raptor team, I never ever count them out. Even with what's going on, what's coming up, I think they can do it still. It really it's a double-edged sword whether the home games are going to be helpful to us or not. We just really need to get good home crowds down there, and they need to really protect their home court. They need to think about this. Like, this is our home court. This is our home country. This is our home city, and we need to defend it and get the W here no matter what. Take some pride in winning on your home court over the next 2 weeks, Raptors, because we're going to really need it. We're going to really, really need it to get the W's. Oh, my gosh, we are going to. Let's see. Let me catch up with this. Callie's saying she's concerned about Fred, frustrated with his game, too much dribbling. Yeah, there was a little bit of too much of the wait around and look around kind of bullshit that him and Pascal do at the top of the key. I'm sick of that, y'all. I understand. Maybe you're reading the court, trying to pick it apart and figure out where the weakness is, but I hate that. You eat up so much time on the clock, and we saw too many hoisted shots right at the last second, like people chucking shots from three just to try and get a shot off while the shot clock before it expires. And that's eating up too much time. Like, Pascal, I see you dribbling at the top of the key, and you're taking like 6 to 8 to 10 seconds of the shot clock. Standing up there, you need to initiate the offense faster because you may not be the first shot on the shot clock. You may miss, and somebody may get your rebound and put it back. And if you do it right at the last second, that second shot won't count. And that's something y'all need to start. Get going. Get going. Quit waiting, because all you do is you let the Bulls defense set itself and get ready. It's when you're setting yourself on your offense, you're setting the other team. So be like Nick Nurse and not call a timeout. Just go right into your flow. And just maybe this is something they need to work on. It's like, don't take your time and do that. I know part of it is clock management and wanting to manage clock, but if you're down, there's no reason for you to be doing that. You should be going. If you have a deficit to make up, you shouldn't be resting on your laurels and trying to figure it out that way. You should be just going full tilt like Precious or like Scottie or Delano. The way these guys dribble up the court and attack the paint right away is fantastic. That's the kind of stuff I wish I would see more from Fred and Pascal sometimes. And yeah, there was too much dribbling, too much like hanging out at the top of the key when we should be initiating and getting engaged in our offense right from the start. I hate that. I don't want to see this anymore. This is a bad trait, a bad habit that these guys have had as young players for a long time. And we've seen less and less of it as time goes on, but it still pops up from time to time. And it's just a natural inclination they have to try and observe what's going on in the court and try and break it down in their heads. But maybe they need to go on their instinct a little bit. Understand and trust your instinct, Pascal, that you'll make the right decision in the moment. And don't do it that way. And maybe pass it to somebody else instead of just dribbling and trying to do an isolation to cut into the side of the lane like you always do. They know what you're going to fucking do when you dribble like this. It's not like you're making any element of surprise. You're going to come off the dribble and you're going to try and go around them and you're going to try and spin and lay it up. But they know that. They know that. So maybe pass the ball around the horn. Put it to Fred. Let Fred pass it back to you. But don't just dribble it yourself and hold it in one place. That's what I'm saying right there. Raymond's saying too much dribbling is a result of not being tall enough to just see over people. Laugh out loud. Fred's layups getting rejected is a concern. This is something Fred's always had to deal with this his whole life. This is something, and he's very proud about this. That that's going to happen just because of his height and the way the defenders are. And it seems like that, people can come and block you. And that's unfortunate. But he's a savvy, smart vet that knows how to guard his layup with his body or come up around underneath the basket. So sometimes he'll get blocked, but sometimes he'll have success. I actually really like that he's going to the basket again because he's smart enough to know in the flow of the game when he can put the gas on and get the basket and get a quick layup around a defender. Even if there's a defender at the basket, he can sometimes beat them too. So I still want to encourage him to do that, but it is tough. I mean, yes, he's a shorter guy, but his court vision shouldn't be hurt by that. He's a point guard. He's played in the league for how long? He's an all-star now. He should be able to have court vision and pass the ball away and out of there. And Pascal shouldn't have any excuse. Like, honestly, he should be able to pass it also. But yeah, the layups getting rejected is always ugly. We hate to see it. But of course, we do it the other way too. Chris Boucher has some nasty ass blocks. And boy, what a great block by Yuta at the end of the game last night. I love seeing that kind of shit, that he challenges people like that, and just a perfect, really perfect block. And that's the kind of highlight that kind of makes you feel okay in the middle of a loss at the end of a game, is seeing Yuta challenge a guy at the basket and be successful with a shot block. So stuff like that. Kenne's here. Good to see you, Kenne. We did our best, but that 3-point wasn't falling. Pascal was less aggressive in the second half. He really was. Like in the Philadelphia game, he was very much the dominant player, the best superstar on the court. And that's saying a lot with guys like Harden and Embiid out there. So last night, if he could done that again, he couldn't. Because the guy on the court was our man right here, this guy. I'm going to talk to him real quick. Why'd you do that to us? Because I'm trying to be in the playoffs too. Yeah, but you really killed us last night. Your efficiency last night was absolutely off the charts. And I have a lot of respect for you, and you're a badass, but we really needed that win last night. Yeah, but we need that win also. Well, all right. So that straight from the horse's mouth. DeMar needed that win also. So it's just what it is. I mean, the Bulls are in the heat of the battle also, and they have their things that they need to do also, their things to accomplish, and we do too, and it's just what it is. I wanted to ask him what happened there. Let's see. Marlon Toby said, off of a back-to-back with Sixers with mostly healthy Bulls team who were losing games prior to last night, it would have been a test to contain. Yeah, they're hungry. They've lost so much lately. They're really hungry to win some games. Obviously, like I said, this play-in battle right now, play-in playoff battle is very important. They see how close they are to us in the play-in now, and they're scared because they were up at the top. They were the number one team in the East for a while this year. So they have really slid recently. And they're a good team in some ways, but I still think they're a pretender team in some ways also. Like, I don't have a lot of faith in some ways that the Bulls will win a championship because they have some major weaknesses and problems in some ways on their team still. And, a lot of it is their defense, is whether they choose to play defense or not. At times last night, we saw them play no defense, and it was really easy to score and do things down low and do all kinds of things. And then at other times, they sealed it out, and they really were trying on defense, and they absolutely stopped us. So if they decide to play defense like we play defense, like as more of the time, the game than possible, they'll do well. But that's not a guarantee. And their defense could look really bad at times, and other people can start scoring on them real quick. So I'm a little worried for their chances in the playoffs, because I am rooting for them. If we're not going somewhere, I'm rooting for them because of DeMar. And if the Raptors aren't going to win the championship, I'd love Chicago to win it. But I see stuff in their game and who they are that is some weaknesses, and other teams are going to very much capitalize on them, and they're going to have success. And that may be part of what's happening recently. And that whole stat about how they do against top teams versus bad teams and is reversed with us. Like, they lose to all the top teams and they take care of all the teams that are bad and below 500. That's not good either, because that means they're not beating the top talented teams in the league, the teams that they're going to probably have to face if they want to win a championship. So I'm worried about the Bulls' chances for being a championship contender, because they may not be one of the top Eastern Conference teams. And I know a lot of people say the same thing about us, but maybe we're around the same place as them as far as a franchise and what our real championship aspirations are. And I know Bulls fans not going to want to hear that, but maybe the Raptors have just as much of a chance to win the championship as you do right now. Yeah. That's what it looks like a little bit. I know that y'all beat us 3 out of 1, but we play really good against top teams. And that's a difference between us and y'all. We beat Phoenix. We beat Milwaukee. We swept Milwaukee. And y'all didn't beat Milwaukee once this year, and you didn't beat Phoenix either. So there's a lot of teams you have not beaten this year or proven you can beat that we have proven we can beat. So it's stuff like that. But yeah, Marlon, the back-to-back really killed us. The way, like I said earlier in the live stream, that Philadelphia Flyers hockey game fucked us up. That they started that game at 2 p.m. Why didn't they start that game at noon? If you're going to have 2 events in your arena, Philadelphia, you need to spread them out more. Don't put so much pressure on the conversions team that they have to do it that quickly, because that's a really quick turnaround. If that hockey game started at 2 p.m., that means it wasn't over till 4:30, and you had to have that court ready for 7:30. That's crazy. You did that in 3 hours. Usually a conversion takes 6 to 7 to 8 hours. And that to me, that's fucked up. You should have started your hockey game at noon. That's messed up of the NHL. I'm kind of mad at the NHL for hogging up the time in the Philadelphia arena on Sunday afternoon, because that really backloaded to us and our schedule and then getting to Chicago. And that messed us up. Alistair said, our defense is better without Fred. I hope he sits out. We don't need him to beat top teams, in my opinion. Last night all made sense. That's interesting. I mean, I've thought about this too and what you're saying, but there's also so many different things that Fred does for us that is important as far as leadership, just steadying things on the court, keeping the flow. He can control the flow of the game. He can control different aspects of the game that we don't totally understand. And that basically is kind of like how we get into our offense, whether we're clicking and stuff like that. I think it was just an off game for him and Pascal in the second half. It could be that, like I said, Billy Donovan really told his guys to key on them and not let them do anything successfully. And they really did a good job. Couple that with our fatigue and them really keying on the key guys on our team that help us keep going late in the game. And boom, you see what happens last night. But I can't say that our defense is just better without Fred, because in some ways he does do a lot of really good things defensively for us. Guarding point guards and guards with the ball on the top with like steals and stuff. And when Gary's out there with him, it may be more we were missing Gary last night. Like Gary and Fred have become such a good tandem with their guard defense on the top that may have been a big factor in it all right there. Is that Gary next to him really helps. And before it was Kyle and him would be able to play off each other really well and play pretty good defense. But now it's Gary, and Gary wasn't there. So it's really tough. I won't say that. I can't say that because I feel like Fred is going to help us no matter what out there. And I would never say, let's just bench Fred. But there are going to be obviously times where Nick Nurse goes positionless and doesn't have Fred out there. And we're running Scottie and Pascal at the point and doing different things. And that's been good stuff from that. Callie's asking, do you think we will see OG soon? Well, he was shooting again right before the game. He was shooting out on the court in Chicago a lot. And once again, his shot looked good. He looked like he could still shoot with the splint on his ring finger on his shooting hand. It looks like he could shoot fine with it. Like this is 2 games in a row. I've seen him out there for pregame shoot around, and he's been out there the longest and really, really shooting a lot. So I hope so. I hope this guy does soon. It's really, they're kind of weighing, like I said, the risk reward of when we need to put him back in so that he meshes back in with the lineup before the playoffs so that we're running full steam in the right kind of way with him. He will be back before the playoffs. It's just a matter of when. It may not be right away. It'd be great if it was Thursday. It'd be fantastic if we saw him show up for Thursday. That's what Monique is wishing. And I do too. It'd be fantastic because he really would help us. He would be a pickup. And even if he's only in there for limited minutes, his defensive energy rubs off on other guys and will make our defense even better. So hopefully it could be as soon as Thursday, but I wouldn't count on it. I think that what they're saying is going to be at least till Saturday. So maybe the Saturday game's the first game we might see OG back. And I think that's Indiana on Saturday. Raymond Jacobs saying, Callie, OG will return only to have something new come up and be sidelined again. Oh, come on, Raymond, man. I know you're in a bad mood because we lost last night, but we can't be so negative. He's not our Anthony Davis, man. Come on. That's unfortunate. Like, these guys are multi-million-dollar athletes, and they want to ensure that they have long careers. So even with some of these injuries in the past, players would play through them. Like in the 80s, Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas, those guys would play with a broken finger like what he has right now. They're just being extra super careful. And it's not that OG doesn't want to play. It's just that they're really taking in the information from the doctors and what's going on with it and really thinking about the long-term repercussions of possibly risking him playing and different things like that, and also trying to let it heal a little bit more. So I wouldn't say that. I don't like putting those kind of like monikers on people. Anthony Davis is a problem for the Lakers, and we don't have anybody like him. I mean, if we really want to say who's been hurt the most, it's probably Ken Burch. So that may be more applicable in that way. It's just OG has had some bad luck. And man, I don't like that you're in a negative mindset, man. Come on, man. We got to see the positive side and things and stuff like that. That's why we're here and stuff like that. We're looking forward. We have a short memory. We got to look forward and think of positive positive things happening, good things happening, because when we put things out in words out in the world, maybe they're more likely to happen or become something. So let's think about it that way. Tom Duke's saying OG will never be as bad as AD. Yes, Tom Duke. Yes, of course. Yeah, no, there's no way. Because first of all, OG works hard. OG plays defense. OG is like does a lot of different things that AD doesn't. AD does not work hard at this point. He's been in the school of LeBron how to play, and that school is very lazy. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Tom Duke saying next game is a biggie. A win last evening would have really been good for the standings. Yeah, that's an understatement. And yes, this Cleveland game on Thursday may be the most important regular season game of the whole entire year. Not the most exciting, not the most great game. It could be, but it is probably the most important game of the whole year for our playoff implications and playoff kind of stuff. So really, really got to take this seriously. Get back to Toronto today, Raptors, and come on, get some good tape room, get some good practicing in, heal your bodies, do all that pre-work to get your bodies ready for Thursday night. And we will come to the arena and we will get loud and be right for you as a crowd. Hopefully, that's a really important factor too. Chris comes saying, "Well, there goes my streak, man. We need to get healthy." BK is 2 games behind. Raptors have to demolish the Cavs Thursday. Yeah, Chris comes bringing up the Brooklyn Nets. This is a team that may be trying to surge now because Durant's back. Durant is a competitor. Durant's going to want to do some things to make moves before the end of the season. And, they don't want to be in the play-in either. So they have the same kind of goals that we have right now, but they're at a little bit more of a disadvantage than us. It's going to be really, really important to keep this margin between them and us. And hopefully they can keep losing games here and there also. But that's the thing. If you look at Chicago, Cleveland, Brooklyn, and us, of these 4 teams, who's going to win the most out of their last 10 games? That is going to be a huge factor. So we really need to get like 7 or 8 of these games going out if we can. It's going to be a tall order. It's going to be tough. Some of these games are going to be tough. Like we still see Miami. We still see Philadelphia. We still see some really good teams before we get done with the season. So it really is going to be what happens there. All right, let's see. Good morning to my brother Carl. Good to see you. I hope everything's good in Atlanta. I'm glad that you got to see the folks this weekend and hang out with them and they got to babysit the niece and nephew and stuff like that. Good stuff all around. Love you, brother. And I'm hoping I'm going to get to see you this summer for our grandmother's 100th birthday, y'all. Our grandmother, our Vanaima, our Estonian grandmother is turning 100 in June. It's going to be so awesome. I'm really hoping my little brother and his family will come up and celebrate that 100-year birthday that my grandmother has in June. It's going to be fantastic. Anyway, all right, let me see. Let's go over the stats real quick. Like I said, that we were really even with them at halftime. When I did my halftime stat check, all the stats were pretty much lined up, but we ended up letting them shoot way better. We got 1 more shot attempt than them, but they made 4 more field goals than us. And that's never good. Like they were really getting more shot attempts than us at halftime. So we made up some shot attempts in the second half, but we missed way more of them than we needed to. I already talked about the 3-pointers, how both teams had 5 3-pointers at the half, and then we ended up with 6 at the end of the game. You do the math. That's a Fred VanVleet 3-pointer late in the second half, only one of them, and then they got 6 more 3-pointers in the second half. And that's a big part of the difference right there. Our 3-point shooting was all right last night. We were perfect at the line for a long time, but we ended up missing 2, but we shot 87% at the line. That's fantastic. Meanwhile, they were horrible at the line. They shot 60%. They missed 10 free throws. I was not upset about that at all. I'm not going to lie. We out-rebounded them, which was good, but we got the same amount of offensive rebounds as them. Like 14 offensive rebounds on both sides. Hustle stats and assists pretty even. This is the one that really killed us, and this is totally uncommon for us. Like, when have we had more turnovers than the other team? Not very often, and this many more. We had 14 turnovers to their 6 turnovers, so we had over double their turnovers. That is not characteristic of a normal Toronto Raptors team. And once again, I think that that's an indication of fatigue. That's an indication of not taking care of the ball the way you're supposed to. And like I said, that one section in the third quarter last night where we turned over the ball like 3 trips down the court in a row, that was absolutely deflating and awful. And like honestly, I'm so hot and cold with Thad Young. Some days I'm like, man, I'm so glad he's on our team and doing different things. But these last 2 games, I'm not as happy with him. Like last night, I was not happy with him at all. He was really bad for us off the bench. And in some ways, you would have been better off with Yuta Watanabe playing those minutes last night, Nick Nurse, instead of Thad Young. I know he does different things and stuff like that, but maybe Yuta wouldn't have made some of those, turnovers. I don't know what you said, Tom, but I want to see it. I know you just switched it off. I didn't read it in time. All right, let me see. Let's look at the actual box score and see what our starters and Raptors did last night. Pascal wasn't bad statistically, honestly. The 4 turnovers are the worst thing about what he did last night, but 22 points on 8 of 14 shooting, that's not bad at all. 5 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, it's like you guys said, he just didn't show up in the second half. A lot of his points, he had 16 points at the half. So you do the math. He got 6 points in the second half. That's not enough from our main scorer, important franchise guy. Precious had a real struggle last night getting into the game. He was missing a lot of shots early, but he did finally get a couple to go down near the end. They were all 2-pointers, though. He missed all 5 of his threes last night. And we know Precious is usually good for 1 or 2 of those lately, but he was really cold from 3 last night. He did get 9 rebounds and 6 points. And that's not a great line from Precious, considering what he did for us against Philadelphia the night before. And once again, he started Precious and Kem Birch. He said he wasn't going to do that, but then he did it again last night anyway. Why didn't you start Boucher instead of Achua last night? You could have done that, Nick, and that may have helped the things right away with the start of the game. Scottie Barnes not getting double digits last night, y'all. He only scored 8 points. That's really, really interesting. He's been shooting more poorly recently. He was shooting over 50% for most of the season, but these last 2 games, he has not shot well. Some of it is he's getting more contact. People are hitting him more, and he's not finishing through it. But some of the shots are right there, and they look like they're going to go in, but they just didn't fall. Like they were kind of like the Pascal rim out kind of rollouts where he's really like getting good shots. They look like they're going to fall in, but then they fall out outside the rim somehow, some way. 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks by Scottie. So he had good stats, all-around stats. Didn't score much, though. That's very interesting to me, and that may have been a huge factor. You take Precious and Scottie out of our offense right now, and we're relying on other guys, and we don't have Gary and OG. That's a big problem. Kem, really good night last night, actually. I really like what Kem did last night. He was aggressive to look for a shot. He was 5 for 9 from the field. That's fantastic. He took 9 shots, y'all. Fantastic. He even took 2 3-pointers last night. That's insane. He didn't make them, but 4 offensive rebounds and 7 rebounds altogether, even 4 assists from Kem Birch. So fantastic game by Kem Birch last night. That's the direction I've been calling out for him to go more towards. We talked about Fred already. I won't talk about him anymore. I thought he was solid, but he did disappear in the second half. Thaddeus Young pissed me off. I thought he had more than 1 turnover. He's only listed for 1 turnover, but he caused more than 1 turnover. He definitely was a factor in some of the other ones. He did get 2 steals to get kind of back some goodness from that, but 4 points, 2 rebounds in 14 minutes. Not too much good to talk about with him. Chris Boucher was fantastic last night. Once again, 8 for 14, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, just showing all these different kind of cool things that he does. He did hit a 3, 4 offensive rebounds. Really proud of Chris. He's continuing his high level of play as a bench player for the Raptors with another double-double. Yuta was really good energy off the bench in the 4 minutes he got. Once again, I really wish he had played more than 4 minutes last night. We had such bad fatigue in the second half. Yuta Watanabe should have been out there. Make Takeshi happy, Nick Nurse. Put Yuta Watanabe in there so the Japanese reporters can ask questions about how he played and what he liked about them. Delano, no points. Fee, no points. And then Armani Brooks, really, the game last night for Armani Brooks may have been the game that sealed the deal for him to be possibly on our roster, that he may be the guy, because I really love his shooting stroke. Like he was 2 for 5 from the 3-point range last night, 3 of 7 overall, 8 points. He, once again, didn't hurt us. He was helping on defense. He was doing good things. things, hustling. He was all over the place, really sound on the offensive end also. And then when he got some open shots, he was a threat to actually make them. And that's fantastic. Tom Duke saying, just commented that Grandma Ott's getting to 100 is impressive. Yes, Tom is really impressive considering she lived in Estonia when she was born in 1922. She was, like, as a young girl, grew up in Estonia, which is one of the Baltics. That's, the Russians are, possibly looking at their Ukraine situation. It's like, but at least Estonia is NATO and stuff like that. But then she met my grandfather and they're very young. And then the war started, like World War II started, and she had to be like a war refugee. Yeah. Cause she was just like some of these Ukrainian people that have had to flee their country. She had to flee Estonia as a war refugee and went to Sweden. And that's where my father was born as a child of no land. He's an Auslander. He was a citizen of no land. My father, he was actually a refugee baby in Sweden. And then they moved to Canada because they started extraditing the refugees from Estonia back to Estonia. Sweden started sending them back to the Russians. And by then they had annexed it and made it part of the Soviet Union. And that was all fucked up. Don't let them get me started on how the Soviets being in charge of Estonia for most of the 20th century was really bad. And so they had to jump again, and they got their money together and they came to Hamilton, Ontario. And that's how my family got here. That's how I became a Raptor freak. I would not be a Raptor freak if none of these things had gone in this order of things. So she is really an incredible person. The fact that she's a war refugee from World War II, she was in the end of Spanish flu from 100 years ago. So she's seeing a pandemic now. She's not new to the game. She's been through this before. And, just an amazing story of like coming to another country and making something huge out of your family. Like my grandparents, they came here with nothing. They didn't even speak English when they were here in Canada, in Hamilton, and they went and took factory jobs and worked their ass off. And then they ended up buying a house in Toronto. My grandfather went to work for CBC as a set carpenter. He used to build sets in the 70s for all the CBC TV shows. He was building stuff for shows like, like with people like Vincent Price on the show and stuff like that. I think he did some of the work on Polka Dot Door, different great Canadian shows. My grandfather was a carpenter there. There's a plaque in the CBC headquarters with his name on it. And then my grandmother, she went and worked for Loblaws. She became a corporate accountant for that company and worked for the corporate Loblaws as an accountant. They had both really, really good jobs, and they lived the Canadian dream. Yeah, forget about the American dream. These people came from a country without knowing the language and came here. And so many people come to Toronto then do this. They do it to this day. Immigrate to Toronto and they become great people. They be able to come and have a new life and new opportunity here. And I love that is still kind of possible here. In some ways it's not, in some ways, but in some ways it is still something that's possible. And that is the real true Canadian dream, what my grandparents did. I'm so proud and lucky to have had them. And the fact that my grandmother is going to be 100 next month, or not next month, in June, is fantastic. I'm so happy and stuff. I'm very close to her. I've lived with her at different times in my life. And her and I, when we talk, it's not like grandmother and grandson. This is like buddies. We're like old friends. And we go back and forth. It's hilarious, some of the stuff we say. She used to appear on my old show at the convenience store. I'd call her. There was a segment I used to do, a regular segment on my convenience store game show, where I'd call my grandmother and we would actually get to hear the conversations between her and I. It's really entertaining stuff. I know I don't talk about my old show, the Kensington Variety VIP Club, that much, but I did that show for 2 years when I lived in Kensington Market from 2017 to 2018 to 2020. I did this show until the pandemic started. It's really interesting. It's like a time capsule. It captures the life of Kensington Market and the people that come into the store and all the different things that happen around that time, whether it's weed legalized in Canada. There were problems with rent evictions going on in Kensington and gentrification. And then, of course, the Raptors winning the championship. This is all documented on that show. So if you want to watch it, go check it out in my YouTube archive. I have the Raptor Freak archive of all these shows, but right next to it is the Kensington Variety VIP Club. Club show, which is absolutely a hoot. There's some of the episodes are mostly just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but I documented every single day that I worked at that convenience store. And I played games with my customers. I made trivia, Raptors trivia to customers. They won sodas for it. I did this thing called the, I had like a box and I put stuff in it and I'd have them auction for whatever was in the box. And it was a mystery. It's like all kinds of fun games and stuff like that. Really silly stuff. But I love that I got it done in the 2 years before coronavirus, and that right at the end of the series, Corona comes and it changes everything. In the last couple seasons of Kensington Variety VIP Club, I'm in isolation at my house talking about how my life changed from working at the store and being around everybody to being isolated at the house. Very interesting stuff. It's going to be like some sort of, I'm going to watch it in 10 years from now and be like, whoa, this is like a great scrapbook of memories of a weird time in the history of the world. It's like a really going to be that kind of thing. It's very interesting. All right, let me keep reading with you guys. I'm off topic right now, but yeah, check out Kensington Variety VIP Club. It's silly, man. It's fun. You'll love it. Martin's my main guy on that show. He was like my main customer coming in there. You'll love Martin. Martin's amazing. There's so many great little fun characters and people from Kensington Market that appear on the show regularly. You'll get to know all of them if you watch that series. It's hilarious. All right, Tom Duke saying, I miss my grandmas. Such great memories. Love your loved ones. Yes, Tom. And thanks for sharing. You are good from good people. You're good people. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. You know, we're so lucky to get the time we get with our loved ones that we should really cherish them and take advantage of them. I really do believe in that. For sure. Mary Jane, good morning. Good to see your name again. I'll see you again after this live stream. Yes, we need OG and Gary Trent back so we can rest Fred more. Fred isn't 100%. I totally agree with this, Mary Jane, that not having Gary Trent at the last minute last night really hurt things for Fred and the rest of the team. Like I said, even if he's not making his shots, even if he gets like 7 or 9 points, he's a decoy. He spreads the floor out. He's such an important part of our defense with just bothering people and getting the ball knocked loose and deflections and stuff like that. That we did really miss him last night. That he would have been somebody that could have really helped us last night. Banana Bread Tan, that's awesome, man. 100 years. Congrats to her, man. Yeah, well, it's not yet. It'll be June the 12th is when she turns 100. And hopefully my whole family will all be here in Toronto, able to see each other without any conditions or restrictions. It's been very strange going to see her during the pandemic. It's been difficult, because she is in a home, an assisted living home, and they've had really good strict rules, which I'm very happy about. But there were times when I'd go see her during the pandemic where I'd have to talk to her through the window of the building from the outside through the phone. And it felt a lot like I was going to visit somebody who was incarcerated, which was crazy. And she didn't understand it all completely. I mean, she's 99. She doesn't completely have everything understanding, and that's probably for the best. Like maybe she doesn't need to know about what's happening in Ukraine right now, but that I'd have to repeat to her a lot why I couldn't come in and hug her or see her and stuff like that. It was very confusing for her. But, she was happy. She's very happy in the place she's staying because a lot of the people that stay in the house with her are Estonian refugees who came from Estonia also. There's some people that live with her at 99 that she knew as a child in the 20s in Estonia 100 years ago. So that's fantastic and impressive that full circle, she could have people that know her full journey because they had it also in the same place that she lives. So she has a very active social life and so many different friends there that she does all kinds of stuff. I go there and play bingo with all of them. They love playing bingo with me. I'm kind of a little bit of a bingo shark. But yeah, Sue saying, wow, 100, that's amazing. This will be a great big birthday for her. How awesome is that? I really hope my brother and his family come up from Atlanta and join us, and we all have a great celebration, especially after all this bullshit the last 2 years. It'll be so good to have everybody together finally, because it has been tough. I haven't seen my brother and his family since the pandemic started. The last time I saw them was Christmas of 2019. So this will be really big deal to get to be reunited with them. I was supposed to go see them at Christmas, but the spike messed everything up. You guys know because of watching the stream. Let's see. Banana Bread Tan saying that was a tough loss. Not having Gary, Fred, and Malachi is forcing our big men to learn to play off ball and move around more because they're without a playmaker. Precious and Barnes are growing a lot. They really are. They're fantastic. I'm so happy that. Listen, there's a lot that happened. There's a lot of moving parts last night. You can factor in the stuff I'm talking about, the hockey game the day before and how it pushed back our Philadelphia game. You talk about like the real urgency of the Bulls and not wanting to continue to slide. Like these guys have been really sliding. We've been kind of winning recently, but these guys have been absolutely sliding and in bad trouble. They needed this win badly. And DeMar DeRozan is another whole kind of factor on top of itself because this man is a badass. He's a clutch. He's an artist who has refined his craft over the years in the NBA and gotten better and better and better and better. And you just see it. Like just the way he picked us apart last night was amazing. Like honestly, I was in awe of DeMar and the way he was making his shots last night. And I just have to respect and love him no matter what, even if it's against us and it's hurting us. It's just like I have so much accrued affection and love for him that it's nice to see him succeed and have great things like that happen. If it's going to be somebody like that that's going to kill us and have such a great high percentage shooting night, I'm glad it's DeMar. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad it's tomorrow. Okay, we're just under an hour. This is actually a good time for us to wrap up. As I said, tomorrow's going to be Raptor Freak Trivia number 15. It's going to be, I'm not going to tell you exactly what the subject is, but I've been doing the research for it. I'll put it together. 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Come get some points for a half an hour from 9:30 to 10 a.m. We're playing for this. I'll go get it. Here it is. It's the practice jersey that I got signed by Jerome, the Junkyard Dog Williams. It's got the tag still on it. It's in great shape. I'm going to mail it to whoever has the most trivia points at the end of the season. So y'all are actually playing for something. This isn't some frivolous trivia that we're just going to, you get some kudos and that. You'll actually get a prize if you win it. So Banana Bread Tan saying, can you imagine DeMar on this team? It'd be interesting. It'd be very interesting. Of course, we'd probably not have one of the major core guys in our lineup if we did have him, but I wouldn't be upset. This whole idea of having DeMar and Kyle both back with us to retire is fantastic. If it could happen that way, that'd be great. If they could have one dream season with our current core, best core young guys, and those two guys are our bench, old vets that come in and just play and try and get a last championship with Toronto at the end of their career, that'd be a dream. I'd love to see that, but it'd only happen if Kyle's here too. DeMar said that he will not play for the Toronto Raptors unless Kyle Lowry is there too, but at least he said he would play for the Toronto Raptors again if the opportunities and things line up right. But that's a tall order. Like, really, how are we going to get that to happen? Like, these guys are going to want money on the way out. They would really want to have to do it on goodwill, and we'd have to have a team that was really a high caliber team that was possibly really a threat to get the championship on paper. Not one of these teams who's like, oh, we could do it possibly. They have to be a team that looked like, yeah, this team could win the championship, and they're trying to come and hunt another chip. That kind of thing. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a great lineup. Fred, DeMar, OG, Barnes, and Siakam. It's very, very cool. And he's back at his real position, the shooting guard. Because it's funny. Everybody says he's a power forward now. I'm like, this man is not a power forward. He's not a power forward. DeMar DeRozan is not a power forward. He's a shooting guard / small forward. That is what he is. All right, y'all. Let me go. Tomorrow, trivia, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time sharp. I'll be here. I hope some of y'all will come and join me, get some points, win that practice jersey. And then Thursday, previewing the Cleveland game, maybe the most important game of the season for the Raptors, for ramifications for late season. All right, y'all, let's go Raptors. We lost the Bulls, but at least it was DeMar. That's all I can say about that. All right, y'all, have a great Tuesday. It's sun shining in Toronto. Hopefully the guys will come back and they'll see it's not just a winter wonderland tundra here in Toronto. And they can actually be outside and feel some spring vibes. Oh, yeah. God bless you, too, Banana Bread Tan. All the best to you, Tom, Sue, Callie, everybody who joined me this morning. Tom Duke, love you all. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Let's go.